Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Pam.
And today we are going to learn all about rag quilts, and I have never made a rag quilt.
And it's so easy to make using our rag dies. So
yes.
Today's kind of step-by-step. You can use any size rag die. The process is still the same.
Well, I'm really excited to see how this goes together, and you're going to teach us. And we're going to start with the cutting.
Excellent.
Okay, so this is our 8.5-inch square rag die, and you'll notice that there are all the little fringe, all the blades are right here, which is so wonderful. So you don't have to cut that by hand.
Right, those days of cutting with scissors are all gone. We've also cut out the notches for the end, so I can show you when we're done sewing a couple of pieces together. I'm going to show you how to piece it together so they line up perfectly every single time.
Great. Okay, and typically with rag quilts, you use flannel. A lot of people use flannel.
You do, but you can use cotton or a combination of cotton. Some people use denim with flannel on the back. Whatever you have laying around, this is a great way to use your scraps.
Okay, and then with flannel, you still have to be concerned about the lengthwise grain.
You do, always.
Okay, so we've got ours. We've got our piece here that's cut on the lengthwise grain, and we do not recommend that you cut any more than 2 layers
Correct.
of flannel. And it's okay to start with 2 layers, but if you have any problems, then back it down to 1 layer.
Right.
And the easiest thing to do is to put your fabric wrong sides together and cut 2 layers at one time, so then you're already getting set up for the process.
Right. And when you're thinking about making a rag quilt, we suggest you cut all your pieces first and then your batting so that you're ready to just chain stitch and get it put together right away fast.
All right, that sounds great. Also, let's talk about mats for a minute here.
We do. We need to talk about them. This is the die that's really going to tear up your mats. It's going to use it because it has so many pieces to cut. So you want to flip it and turn it like you normally do. But you might want to order a couple of extra mats to use if you're making a big project.
Right, and that is normal that you're going to wear out those mats a lot faster just because of the nature of the rag die.
Right.
Okay, so let's run it through. Now this die is compatible with the Go cutter and the Go Big cutter.
Correct.
So the Go Big makes it even easier.
Right, you don't have to crank that handle, just push it in electric all the way.
But the Go is just wonderful as well. And then it just cuts so nicely. And then we're ready for the next step.
So the next step is, see how we've already cut our fringe, which is just great. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to open this up and put it in a piece of batting. Now these are 6.5-inch squares that we cut in the 12-inch cube. We also have a 6.5-inch square die if you own that. So not only can you cut flannel and felt and denim, but you can also cut batting with our Go cutters. So I'm just going to lay it right here in the middle. Just get it all lined up and see how perfect it lays in there, because I've cut the batting perfectly and I've cut the rag die shapes themselves perfectly. I'm going to lay it on top. Now, quilters, I would suggest you pin it, because what we're going to do is we're going to sew an X through the middle of this. That's going to anchor that batting in there, so when you wash it, it's not going to have that movement of batting, because sometimes that happens with quilts. So I'm just going to pin it over here on this side, and I'm going to pin it over here on this side. And then I'm going to show you real fast how we could just chain stitch right away. Now you'll notice here, quilters, that I have a piece of tape on my sewing machine. What I've done is I've measured 1 inch from the edge of this fringe to right here, and that's the size that you want to sew at.
Okay, I was wondering about that.
Right, you don't want to sew right next to the fringe. You'll kind of miss some of those stitches. So 1 inch from the edge of the fringe. So I took my little painter's tape here and I marked where 1 inch is on my sewing machine. But right now, before I sew them together, I'm going to put that X. So I want to sew from point to point, so you could chain stitch if you wanted to.
Okay.
I know, I love how easy it is.
Yeah, so that is, that's great. So you do actually sew from one side to the other.
I do. So I'm going to step my needle down right there at the corner, and I can see, because the squares are perfect, I can see where the edge is on the other side. So I can just manipulate my machine to go right down to that next corner. Now Lynn's put a couple of other ones together for me. So let's put one more together.
We're missing the pins though. So.
Yeah, let's pin it.
Okay.
I'm a pinner. Are you a pinner?
Yes,
yes,
definitely.
It's important, especially with the rag dies quilters, because that flannel sometimes it shifts and moves. So look, I didn't even have to do anything. I can just go now here to the next square. So you could just sit here and chain piece for days. It's great.
I don't like to unsew, so that's why
Yes.
I'd rather spend a few minutes and pin than do that.
Then pick it out with your. All right, so now you can see how I've sewn that first part of our X together. So now I can take those pins out because we have the batting is already set in here. So now I'm going to turn it the other way. So here's the one I just sewed, and here's the other one that I just sewn. All right.
So then you just go back.
Then I just go back. I start from the other corner.
I can see why these are so popular.
Oh, yes.
It's pretty easy.
And so fast to make. Now, sometimes quilters, I know quilters that use this dye with flannel and they don't put batting in between. Maybe you live in an area that's a little bit warmer. You want that snugginess of flannel, but you don't want to have the bulk of having that batting in between. So try that, see if that works for you.
Right.
All right, so now you can see how fast I sewed those X's. But the X's is a really important step, so make sure you don't skip it. Then I'm going to cut my thread here, and ta-da, look. So see, now I have those perfect X's that's really going to hold my batting together.
Yeah, so
now then the last step is that we want to sew the blocks together. So you want to put the back sides together. So in this one it doesn't matter because the backs and the tops are the same, but maybe you're using all one color on your back.
Right, right.
So you want to sew back sides together. Again, I want to pin it, and then I'm going to stitch 1 inch from the fringe, so right along here.
Okay.
I've marked it here on my sewing machine with a little bit of tape. I'm going to put another pin right down here to make sure it doesn't shift while I sew it. Now, I'm going to start right here at the edge because we've cut those notches out. Look at it as AccuQuilt, thinking of everything. All right, so I'm going to line it up here with my tape, and I'm just going to start and sew.
Okay, so that's nice. The fringe really stays off to the side.
It does, and that's what you want.
Yes.
That's what you want. Then I'm going to take it here. I'm going to take my pins out, and now look how great that is. And we took out all that cutting with your scissors part.
Right, wow, that's wonderful. The last thing that we need to, well, there's a couple more things we need to talk about. I want to talk about cleaning out your die really quick, and we have one here that you can tell this is what your die is going to look like after you've cut an entire project.
Right, you're going to see where all those threads have collected there on the edges, and that's normal.
Exactly.
That's normal wear and tear on these dies.
Yes, and with your Go cutter, or if you get this die pick, that's what this little tool is called, but you can also purchase these separately. You want to have this on hand, and then you also, I recommend a tweezer,
right,
and then also a lint roller is a good idea. And you are going to, at the end of your project, it's a great idea to clean out your rag die.
Right, because what you're going to find, Lynn, is that when it's done, it's not going to cut as cleanly if you haven't cleaned out those threads.
Right.
So find a good movie, prop your feet up, get your die pick, and do a little maintenance.
Right, and so for all you're going to do, just take the edge of that pick and you just kind of run it up against the corners of the foam, and those fabric pieces will come right out. Then you can take your tweezers or your lint roller,
right, and
then you just go on to the next one.
Great, perfect.
Okay. And then what about washing this when it's done?
So what I would suggest you do, because all these edges are going to fray, I would take it to a commercial laundromat and run it through the washer for the first time. Make sure when you pull it out of the washer, you shake and shake and shake and shake it, because again, you're going to get lots of those little threads. Throw it in the dryer on low to medium heat. Let it, again, you're going to get lots of those threads when you're done. Make sure you shake it out, and then it'll be ready to go.
And they call that blooming, right?
Blooming, yes.
Right.
You can bloom your quilt.